minute. It was the fastest selling company, the ICO in Asia. So it's interesting. On the online side, there's actually real-life cases that are coming through that are addressing certain issues. And then the next level, and this actually gets even more interesting to my mind, professional services. So again, we're getting into the real world here now. And this is possible because of the advent of smart contracts. I'm sure you're familiar with them, but just in brief, a smart contract is where two parties engage to do a certain, a certain amount of work. When that work is done and both parties are happy, the contract automatically executes. Bingo. So it's not to do away with lawyers, but maybe a lot of the basic stuff could be put on smart contracts. But there's three actually interesting examples here that I think are fascinating. Again, talking about how this technology will transform our world. The first one is insurance. There's a company called EtherRisk that's set up, and what they're doing is they're looking at how to automate insurance so it's painless and easy. And a good example is flight delays. Now, if I go to my flight tomorrow and it's delayed, I have travel insurance, and I think maybe it's 6 hours, I don't know, after such time, I will be allowed claim insurance for the disruption. But what's interesting, what if in a normal world, my flight is delayed, I have to catch a different flight, I'm exhausted, I get home, I ring my insurance company, they say fill in a form, I fill in a form, I have to provide documentation, and we go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and I think, and then maybe I give up halfway through because it's too hard, or maybe they're really horrible to me, and I get paid eventually. That is not a very good user experience. In this example, using a smart contract, and this is a real world use case, it's so clever, I have a contract in my travel insurance. Once my flight is 6 hours and 1 minute late, bang, money into my bank account. And actually that makes sense because for me, it's a much better user experience, but even for the insurance company, it's a better waste of time. You have a better relationship with your customers, they're happier, and you don't have to employ people to harangue backwards and forwards in the actual claims basis. Then messaging, Mingo, it's Ireland's first ICO. They have this thing where you have your phone, I'm sure you all have lots of different messaging apps. So you have like Telegraph, Slack, Discord, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, a whole rake of things. And your friends are sending you messages, and you've all little red dots on your phone, and you can't find where the message is. Mingo, what they're doing, they're collating it all together into a single app. And then moreover, what they're going to do is, so that's first of all, you have your contract-centric message aggregation, and then after that, they're building in a wallet, so you can actually send crypto as easy as sending a text. So you have people trying to log on to exchanges. So that's another real use. Another idea that I love Kleros. This is in the legal area. Now, without being particularly jaundiced or skeptical, we all know that those who can afford the best barristers tend to get the best law. It'd be nice to think that the law is fair and equitable, but in many cases it's not. I'll give you an example. In Ireland at home, still people from disadvantaged areas who do not pay their TV license can often end up in jail. That's crazy. So if someone, a single mum maybe, whatever, who hasn't paid her TV license, she ends up in jail? That's crazy. Whereas we had a recent scandal in Ireland where during the boom time, all the banks decided to issue loss leader mortgages called tracker mortgages. Then we hit the recession and they went, oh, we can't afford these loss leading mortgages. We're going to pull them all in. They did two things. First of all, it was illegal because they had contracts. They took them off the contracts. And secondly, they did it as a cartel. All the pillar banks in Ireland did this together. So it wasn't just sort of random movement. And the upshot was that people lost their homes. People committed suicide. People were miserable. There was 30,000 homes affected by this. And I can guarantee you that not one of the banking executives will go to jail for that. So we know that justice definitely lies in the hands of the people who have the biggest purse. What Kleros is doing, they're saying, what if we could create a smart contract? What if we could use things to make it simple? And one of their ideas is, and they're starting at the base, so a very simple idea is mediation. So I have a company in Ireland, and I want to do a website. So I go to, I put it out to tender. Maybe a programmer in Bangladesh says, I'll do it for you. So I'm thinking, okay, do I trust him? Does he trust me? Sort of backwards and forwards. If we use this example, we put the project onto Kleros, with the mediation button there, the job is completed, and all of a sudden I'm not happy or he's not happy. And what happens is then the job that's on Kleros, because Kleros actually means, it comes from an ancient Greek where you choose a jury member, a random jury member. So on the people on the site, they would gather 12 jurors, independent and anonymous jurors, and they will view the evidence and give a verdict. And bing, and because we've entered into this contract from the start, bang, it's done. Because as sure as eggs is eggs, that poor man in Bangladesh probably wouldn't have recourse. If I decided not to pay him for the website, how is he going to chase me? You know, and likewise, if I'm unhappy with his work, how do I chase him? So there's some really, really exciting things coming down the line. And then the next wave, asset-backed. Aha, getting to fashion eventually. And this is where it's very interesting. So we have, first of all, digital, things that already exist in the digital space using the blockchain. Then professional services using the blockchain, so that's traditional meeting the old. And now we've got asset-backed. So this is where we have real companies, real businesses that are actually getting onto the blockchain. And I have a couple of interesting examples here. There's a gold mine in America, in Colorado, and it's called Maria. And the owners of the gold mine lost their money in the crash. So then they wanted to raise money again to get the gold. And apparently there's lots of gold there. So they're doing an ICO, token sale. And the difference is that they're not going to use the blockchain for anything particularly except for proof of ownership. Raising money, proof of ownership, that's cool. And then it means it's kind of fun. If you have a token, you get a bit of a gold mine, so that's nice. Horse racing, another bizarre one, but there's a company in Ireland. Ireland is the home of horse racing. But at the moment, it's all consolidated into a number of very, very big stable yards. And the idea, this consortium, it's led by people in the industry. They're going to raise money, buy horses, real horses, put them with trainers across Ireland and the UK, and race them. But then, because if you buy, people who buy into the token, then you'll get fractional ownership of this portfolio of horses, and there'll be an app, so you can view your horse, you know, on the wash bay, in the stables, out in the gallops. And I think it'll be quite interesting. In Ireland, we're only 2 feet away from a horse. There's a lot of horses in Ireland, it's wonderful. But if you live in a country where there's not so many horses and you like them, that could be interesting. Prestige cars too. Bitcar was in the market, was in the paper today, raising lots of money, going to raise money for collectible cars. There's also a cousin of mine, Godsil Industries in Manhattan. He's producing a luxury car in the US, but also based on natural gas. So he's going to use that to fund his development. And of course, fashion, which is why we're here. But before we get to fashion, I just want to go back to the whole thing. I do believe, I say the sideshow is Bitcoin and its price and the bubble, and that's really is a distraction. What's really important is that blockchain is transformational, and it can change the world. And I give a couple of examples. In a very straightforward case, you all heard about Pineapple Fund at Christmas, perhaps. There was a Bitcoin billionaire who made a lot of money and decided, I have enough to live on now. I want to give away 86 million to charitable causes. Anonymously, they just did it, and it was the rush came in, and I no doubt we'll hear about it after, but that was nice. There's also people who need, like the unbanked. I don't know if you're familiar or not, but there's 2.5 billion people who do not have bank accounts. Can you imagine living in a world where you don't have a bank account, and how do you transact, how do you pay for stuff? And even in the US, there's 40 million people who are unbanked, and they have to rely on cash. They have to rely on, like, you know, cards, maybe iTunes cards, you know, value money on cards. I cannot understand how people would survive. But now there are websites that I set up that offer peer-to-peer marketplaces, so people can exchange value in Bitcoin. And it's very important for people who are not in the banking world, or if you're maybe in a developing country like Nigeria, where your currency has been devalued by 90%, and you have if you want to be an entrepreneur, you can't buy and sell in your own currency. So having access to a peer-to-peer marketplace is, you know, hugely important. And then home ownership, land registry. Apparently, some 70% of all homes, all land, all property in this world has tenuous title. Now, that's kind of weird, but apparently in Honduras, the government took homes left, right, and center and said, no, you don't own them. They couldn't prove it. And also before the games in Rio, they cleaned out all the shanty towns, you know, before the Olympics came in. And the people, they said, oh, we own this. Oh, no, you don't. And they had no record of it. So blockchain, putting the land title on blockchain will transform people's lives. They'll have security of their homes. And then last week, Davos was on. I'm sure you're all following that. And Oxfam issued their annual report there at Davos. And a couple of things just to highlight. They said, we know this, 1% of the world's wealth is held, 1% of the world's population holds 82% of the world's wealth. And moreover, that has got worse. In the last year alone, the number of billionaires has increased. And that's through also just not even by working, that's just by having inherited money increasing over time. And the poorest half of the population have not increased at all. So there's a huge, huge inequality in distribution of wealth. I mean, the world is generating wealth, but it's not going to the right people. And they actually, in the Oxfam report, they gave an example of directly relevant to the fashion industry. They said a CEO of a major luxury brand in the US earns in 3 days what a female garment worker in Bangladesh will earn in her entire life. But that can't be right. That is like a huge, huge problem. So, I mean, I believe in blockchain, I believe in crypto, I believe in the transformational power of good that it offers the world. And, you know, people say that things are disruptive, like Airbnb and Uber are disruptive technologies. But, you know, they were, but they weren't, and they're called the sharing economy. But they're not really the sharing economy, because even though they're disruptive, and even though it's a sharing, we're sharing stuff, people who benefit is Uber Inc., it's Facebook Inc., it's Airbnb Inc. So now is the time to think that maybe we could disrupt the world and give that woman, that garment maker in Bangladesh, a living wage, and not just, you know, working for her entire life for 3 days of a CEO's salary. That's quite scary. Anyway, back to fashion. Ta-da! Okay, fashion coin. I love this whole idea. And again, fashion is a real industry. It has real people, it has manufacturing, it has production lines, it has supply chain, it has all the things. It's a real world industry. And how would you apply blockchain to that? Well, there's a couple of things where you can go. And at the moment, obviously with the fashion coin, this is where this conference is coming from, they're looking at ways to improve the fashion industry and to disrupt it. But it's not to do away with it, because as the speakers have been saying in the last few days, fashion is important. Fashion is very important. Fashion is you know, Martin yesterday said, you may get up in the morning, you mightn't brush your teeth, you mightn't shower, but you put on fashion. You know, it is intrinsic. So it is very important to, it's how you identify with people. You know, this man here is wearing a jacket, so he might be, you know, a business executive, so I'll talk to him if I want to get some loans. But, you know, it's how you react with people, you identify with how you dress and how they dress. So fashion is an integral part of our lives. And it's important to think it's not just the catwalk. That's the very glitzy, wonderful and very exciting week we've been enjoying here in Kiev Fashion Days. But what else can we do? So things like Anna Kay is very much involved in this in the fashion coins. She's been pushing this and challenging this. What she's thinking is that young designers find it very difficult to break through, because the world is controlled by the big luxury brands. Only the big brands, big advertising money gets through. What if I'm a small designer and I'm quirky and I'm good, and I can reach out to somebody, I can reach out to a customer. So maybe I'm designing in Ireland, but there's someone in Tasmania that likes my stuff. And then we can exchange and we can talk about stuff. And then what about if my fans and my people who like my clothes decide to buy? What if we could then, you know, they want to change the color of the sleeves or the length of the dress. And then what if I would only order and manufacture what was needed? So rather than manufacturing 100,000 garments to go into different shops that might end up in landfill without even being worn, what about if I could engage, and then when a sufficient number was there, I press the button and I make to demand, and I ship them out to across the world? That's interesting. And that gives young designers a bit more chance to shine and to interact with the people. And it gives choice to the consumers. So if you think about it, a lot of the times, and here we are in Kiev Fashion Days, the consumer is dictated because the people who know about fashion are deciding what's good and what's bad. But what if I want to decide what's good and what's bad? So it gives more choice to the consumer. And it links you know, designers with clients. Then there's sustainability. Now, young people now, I sound like young people, they demand sustainability. It's a given. I was just saying that, you know, when I grew up in Ireland, we didn't really recycle that much in my home. Now, there weren't so many plastics around or anything like that, but, you know, there wasn't that, we had one bin. Nowadays, everybody recycles, and it's a given. And young people, you wouldn't, no more would you get into a car without putting your seatbelt on. It's just a thing you do. And I think the younger generation coming through, they want the world to survive. They want sustainability. And this is a way of offering a chance to be more sustainable, rather than, I say, there's huge production lines creating product people don't wear, don't want, and ends up in landfill, which is crazy. And then the idea is also to create a utility coin on the platform, so we could actually do payments, pay models, you know, it'll be a whole ecosystem. But the nicest thing, I think, of all is that also there's provenance too as well, so that if you want to find out, if you have a designer piece, is it actually from Anna Kay? You go back on the blockchain, you cannot, it's immutable, it's transparent, so you know you're actually getting a genuine Anna Kay piece of fashion. But I think the most important thing about it is that it's sustainable. It can also offer that garment worker could get a living wage. How nice would that be to think, because we hear about disposable fashion, how nice wouldn't it be to have fashion where you know that it's only going to be made for what's needed? That's a nice thing. And you can buy, you can choose what you want, you can design it. So I think it's not so much a question of how will fashion fit onto the blockchain, it's how will fashion not fit onto the blockchain? How can it afford to ignore it at its peril? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jillian. Thank you. If someone has questions, is don't be shy and oh, you have a question.
Don't make it a hard one.
Good afternoon. And my question is, how do you think, should we regret luxury brands to the honor of middle brands and young designers, or should we just compete with such brands, luxury brands?
Well, I think up to now, there hasn't been a way for a small brand to compete really with luxury brands, because they control the whole marketplace. And I think the idea of having it on the blockchain, there's an opportunity to open that up and having an ecosystem. And it'll take time, of course it will, but I just think it opens it up, and it's quite nice. Nobody likes the big ones always controlling what you wear and what is considered beautiful. So I think, and that's to say, I mean, I'm not, the luxury brands, there'll still be a place for them, I'm sure, but it'd be nice to think that you can encourage smaller designers, younger designers.
Do you consider it's like ecosystem really, yes?
I think it can be there, because I think it cannot afford not to be there. It's like King Canute, you know, he sat in front of the waves and said, do not come in tide. It's not a question of can fashion fit onto the blockchain. It's cannot afford it not to be on the blockchain, because I think the whole world is going there.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
One more question.
You're going to offer me a loan, aren't you?
No,
You're
thanks.
from a bank.
Okay. Why should we use fashion coin for fashion industry instead of Bitcoin or Ethereum or Neo or something else?
No, a very good question, and this has not been finalized either. This is an idea. It could work either way. It depends how people want to structure it, how the ecosystem is set up. For example, have you heard of Ether Sports? It's a gaming, an esports organization, and they raised a token to build the platform. They have raised the money. They raised 3.5 million. But that token they're not going to use that token for the entry fees. So the people on the site, on the ecosystem who are gaming, will use fiat, Ether, or Bitcoin. And then, but the token, what it's used for afterwards, is distribution of profits. So it's a reward coin. So there are many ways to skin a cat.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Juliana.
Hello. How do you think this fashion coin will affect on fashion e-commerce?
On fashion?
Fashion e-commerce.
E-commerce.
E-commerce. Yes.
I think it'll all merge in together. I mean, I'm not. I mean, obviously you have sites that do e-commerce at the moment. That makes sense, and people will probably still buy directly from them. But I think you'll find there'll be more and more portals, so that popular ecosystems will actually grow. Like Amazon, for example, was books, and now it's lots of things. Yeah, so I think that's what will happen. I think that that'll be the portal to go to, or the ecosystem to use.
So it will be one platform for all?
Possibly. Possibly.
For mass market?
Well, or perhaps there's different tiers. Like you go into a supermarket and there's different floors for designer floor, bargain basement, or luxury top floor. I think that there's a lot of room. I don't think there's one has to be at the expense of another.
Okay, we can take one more question. Do you have? Well, I have a question, Jillian. You talked about exchanges and its role. Exchange is always like a game with zero sum, zero amount. Why do you think it's necessary to have exchanges in such market like cryptocurrency market? And should the fashion coin be traded on these online exchanges?
Well, we have to have an exchange, because how else can we trade? I can't run over to you and hand you, we need exchanges. It's obviously a mechanism. Currently there's 174 exchanges, I think, across the world, and they are active in different coins. And I think in time they'll settle down, and you might find there'll be exchanges for a certain industry perhaps that might, I don't work at, but I think they'll settle down to a couple of 10 top players. But it's like using a bank in some ways. You need some way of exchange. And fashion coin, I understand that is the idea that it will become a utility token, so that there will be a market value attached to it as well.
Yeah, but the problem is that, as you mentioned, guys are selling houses to buy Bitcoin to trade, and mass culture and advertisement tells to such guys that we can teach you to trade. But the problem is that trading is like a lottery, more than mathematics or more than science. And actors who are more experienced in this are very interested in newcomers to take with their money. So it is a problem.
I think I go back to the first principles. When people say to me, should I invest or should I trade? I'm going, do you trade and invest ordinarily? If you have an interest, fine, but only trade that which you can afford to lose. And that's common sense advice, whether it's stock markets, foreign exchange, or cryptocurrency.
Thank you. I can say that Jillian and we are like from one business school or from one school, because when I teach students or speaking with clients, I'm talking 97% like you.
Oh, good. I like this man. Did I pay you enough money?
That's very interesting, because we can observe the formation of a global community. We speak in other languages. We live in different cultures, and we have different governments. But together we are like one community, and it's very interesting, because there was no examples in history before that. So
well, I mean, I think, can I say, I did try to slow down my speaking. I hope, I'm sorry if I was very fast, but I'm so excited about this. And it's not the Bitcoin, it's not the alternative currencies, it's the transformational world, to make a world a better place.
Yeah.
And I mean, I spoke with Sergey yesterday from Tallinn. That's a wonderful, wonderful experiment. It's a social engineering project. They're creating a community. Everybody can mine for the Tallinn coins. And then no one's been paid. This is like a learning, education thing. They'll create a hub of really talented people. They're also providing graphical user interfaces, so that people like me who are not terribly technical can go and actually start mining on my laptop if I want to. I'm going to do that. But then afterwards, do you know what they're going to do? From all that they're creating a rich hub of bright, smart people. And then they'll do commercial projects. But as Sergey says, and this is where I like the younger generation, he says, I want to do good. I want to create projects that have positive social impact. Now, isn't that a wonderful thing to think that young entrepreneurs coming through are thinking like that, rather than I want to scalp the world and make a fortune and buy a Lamborghini? You know, of course everybody wants to be successful, but do good at the same time.
For society and for planet. Thank you. And
Thank you.
A little spoiler for Sergey. Okay. Thank you, Jillian. Nice
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you.
We are always happy to see you.